Hello and welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, the Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 Hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of three amazing kids.
And I'm Omari Sankofa II, Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And as YouTube user says, are you really recording tonight? Yes, we are really recording tonight, 11:50 Central Time. So it is Thursday morning on the East Coast already. Unfortunately, after a season opening loss for the Detroit Pistons, a very interesting game that started out okay, got very ugly for a while, and then got very interesting by the end of the game. We'll probably go for about 30 minutes here tonight. So if you're with us live, please, engage in the chat. Let us know what your thoughts on the game were. Obviously, if you're listening after the fact, we understand, we get it. Hopefully you're catching this on your commute to work or on the way home from work or something like that. But 0-2 Detroit Pistons regular season basketball is back. It has started. Unfortunately, a loss on the road. These things happen in the NBA. Obviously, it seems worse because it's game one. A lot of different things we can get into here, but what were your first thoughts on seeing this 25-26 Detroit Pistons team?
Yeah, not the best first impression. I thought they came out and just kind of had a listless first half, first quarter. They came out with a couple lobs from Cade to Durant and then just kind of got punched. The Bulls seemed like they couldn't miss a three early. Pistons just didn't have a lot of energy in transition, not a lot of energy as far as their defensive execution. Really couldn't get a three to fall, for most of the night. I think they were 3 for 11 in the first half and shot just under 30% for the night. So just a lot of poor execution tonight. They did pick it up. Obviously, they turned a 23-point deficit into a tie game late and just couldn't pull it off, which they had games like that last season too, where they trailed and ended up getting back in it. Like you said, it's one game. I don't think you read necessarily into the first game more than you need to. You probably need like a 5-6 game sample size to really say anything somewhat definitive about this team. But tonight was not their best performance. It was pretty far from their best. And, I think this team knows that they have to win games based on defense, and it just wasn't there tonight.
I think you bring up a good point there. It's hard right now because we only have a 1-game data point, right? So we can't look over a 5-game sample. We can't look over a 10-game sample. And when you only have one game and it goes the way this one did, it's easy to overreact because this is what we do. We analyze and we talk about and we evaluate this basketball team. And I think I agree with what YouTube user says here. I'm not worried about this loss offensively. The Pistons didn't shoot well. That happens, but the perimeter defense has me worried. I will say we'll come back to the offense because there were some worries there. But, man, I did not think this team played with the defensive identity that we kind of know them to have, right? The defensive identity they had last year. You mentioned the transition defense. There was one where they gave up a dunk attempt. Dosunmu actually ended up missing the dunk. But after a made, and I repeat, Omari, a made free throw from the Detroit Pistons. They made a free throw, and then Dosunmu got a dunk attempt on the other end after a made free throw, not even a missed free throw. And that's just not something we've been accustomed to this team doing and giving up. I thought they lacked energy and focus. I truly did on the defensive end.
Yeah, that's just what it was, right? Just the energy and focus. I don't want to say they played down to their opponent or didn't, take the game as seriously, but there was just a level, I think, of execution and locked-inness that the team just didn't have initially. Needless to say, you shouldn't be trailing by 15 in the first quarter and by 23 in the second quarter. So just regardless of how the game ended, like whenever you're playing back from that type of deficit, you're always going to be at a disadvantage. But with that said, the defense did eventually pick up, and a lot of that, I thought was because of Isaiah Stewart and then Ron Holland as well. I think Ron had a couple steals in the third. Stu had a couple blocks, and it began to change then. So I guess that's part of it too, right? Is that they have guys who at the very least can come in and change the defensive pace a bit. So maybe there's something. I don't want to say lineup wise, maybe there's something JB could have done because Duran did pick up 2 fouls almost immediately, and Stu, checked in like 2 minutes into the game. So, it's not like it was a minutes issue, but yeah, just execution, could have just been, first game rest, whatever it may be. Maybe the starting unit just didn't spend a lot of time together in preseason, which, I mean, they did not, of course, because of injuries, and you lose JI. So there's been some stuff going on, but the Bulls were banged up too, so you really can't use that as an excuse either.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, at the end of the day, they didn't have their best scorer in Kobe White, or the guy that I assume probably leads them in scoring throughout the majority of the season, although Modest Bazelis looked really good tonight for them. I thought he had a really good game. I thought this was also, one of my takeaways on the defensive end. And then we can talk about the offensive side of the ball. And then I do think you started to mention Ron and Stu, and I think individual performances is probably where we need to go after that. Stephen P brings up the backdoor cuts, man. It was all game long, just consistent. It started at the beginning of the game. Buzelis was the main, I guess, culprit or whatever, but he cut really well off the ball all game, but a lot of them backdoors. But it wasn't just him. It wasn't just against one Pistons perimeter defender. It was all game. And I saw that, somebody else, YouTube user, said that like they were consistently getting to the paint. I mean, Trey Jones just broke this team down off the bounce over and over and over. And I like Trey Jones, O2. Don't get me wrong. But it just was a little bit disappointing to watch him attack them off the bounce, possession after possession, along with all of the backdoor cuts they gave up. Now, it did get a little bit better. They did cause some of that disruption, and we will get into the individual performances of the rim protection of Isaiah Stewart, some of the disruption that Ron Holland provided, and a little bit of energy in the third quarter from him. I thought Asar was fine defensively, but overall, just a little bit of a frustrating team defensive performance whenever it was opening night, and you really feel like they should have been, fully engaged, fully locked in with their energy level. What about the offensive end? As the comment said earlier, they didn't shoot well from three. So real quick, the numbers there. 7-24 from the 3-point line. Cade 1 of 6. Duncan Robinson 0 of 5. They actually get 3 of 3 from Paul Reed and Isaiah Stewart. So non-Paul Reed, Isaiah Stewart 3-point attempts. The team was 4 of 21, 18 of 26, even from the free throw line, which is less than 70%. They did only turn the ball over 10 times. I guess your thoughts on the offense as a whole before we get into individuals.
Yeah, I mean, not the best offensive night, but to me, the issue with offense is more so just missed shots that you would expect them to make. I think Duncan Robinson went 0 of 5 from 3. Obviously, he's an elite shooter. He didn't shoot it that well during preseason either, but shots will fall for him. Like that's not something you worry about necessarily. Cade also got off to a tough start. I think he was like 3 of 12 from the field until that fourth quarter. And, I think he had a difficult time in part because he was being doubled, but also they're still trying to establish chemistry with Duncan Robinson. So I don't think Duncan got maybe as clean 3-point attempts as he could have gotten. But also, and really the main takeaway I have from their offense is that maybe there are some spacing concerns. And we've, talked about losing Bees and Tim Hardaway and just how much production there is to replace from those two guys. But you had units with, Sar, Ron, Duran, guys that teams are completely ignoring. And Ron did knock down a 3 late. Maybe Ron eventually will get to the point to where teams are like, okay, we actually need to defend him because he's shooting, 35, 36% from 3 or, whatever it may be. But yeah, I think this game did not do anything to maybe calm any fears or concerns that, they will be a bit cramped on the floor, and they're going to have to be careful with some of their lineups because Cade did get it going a bit late. But at the end of the day, he is their offense, and if Cade's not playing well, then I mean, their offense probably is just not going to be that good. So that's something that they have to figure out.
And here's the other thing, Omari, Jaden Ivey not playing is a huge part of this as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we don't have to talk about it after every single game, especially games where they lose. If you look at 3-point percentage for this team last season, guys that played at least 800 minutes. So we take out Bobby Klintman, who played 42, Lindy Waters, who played 123. Malik Beasley was number 1 in 3-point percentage. Jaden Ivey was second. Sasser was third. To that point, Sasser also unavailable tonight, and Tim Hardaway Jr. was fourth. So you don't have your top 4 3-point percentage. Like, there was just no second score. Isaiah Stewart took the second most attempts on this team. I think Stu and Duren at the center position attempted 26 shots tonight combined. Like, that just can't be what you get on the offensive end. And so it's not just the shooting. I do agree with you, and it's something we've talked about. I'm the one that said I thought Duncan Robinson might be the 5th most important player on this team because of his floor spacing, but you don't have any sort of second option. You got to have guys that can score the basketball. This is a game where I think Marcus Sasser could have been huge, and I've been critical of Marcus Sasser, but he's a guy that can at least score the ball. You had guys out there that I think are good basketball players, but they're not anywhere near second options on the offensive end. Tobias at this point in his career, and Asar's not that yet. The bigs, that's not the first thing you think of. Like Stu and Ron Holland being your second and third leading scorers are great, but in terms for them individually, but man, like I thought we really saw where not having that second score in the floor space, it really showed up tonight. I will say, I thought Cade got to his spots and he just didn't make shots. But the spacing, the 3-point shoot, I'm a little nervous with Duncan Robinson in terms of, like, it doesn't seem like they figured out where to get him his shots and how to get him his shots. Like, they haven't been able to get him in rhythm for whatever reason.
Yeah, like there's just not a familiarity with Duncan in that lineup yet. And that's just something that's going to come with time. Like I said, like Duncan, I mean, he's a career 40% shooter. Like, he's not, like, that's not something anybody needs to be concerned about. But just from a chemistry standpoint, that's something that they're still clearly figuring out. But I agree that this definitely was a game where I think JI's absence was pretty glaring because they did just need one other guy who can take pressure off of Cade, just so that you're not doubling him every time he comes down the floor. And you have another creator, you get, a little bit more speed. This absolutely was a game where I think JI would have made a big difference, not to mention the 3-point shooting, where even if he's not necessarily a proven elite guy yet, you're not leaving him open, and he has proven that, he can be at least a guy that can knock down 3 or 4 threes in a game, which on this team, you don't have like a lot of guys who take enough volume to even have like more than 2 3-point makes, right? Like, I think Stu was like, he was 2 of 2 from 3. Cade had 6 attempts, Duncan had 5. So, yeah, I don't know. They got some stuff to figure out with Duncan, but I did like what Stu did. I do want to talk about Stu a little bit. Like 2 of 2 from 3, but also just defensively, the block shots. Like, it was good that he stepped up offensively, but I thought a lot of that too was just the defense, like sparking offense and getting them some easier looks that they hadn't gotten.
Yeah, like I don't want to, like, people know I love Isaiah Stewart. I don't think it's a negative, like, for him individually that he had the game he had. I'm looking through his career box scores. It looks like he's had a couple games where he took 15 field goal attempts. So this was close to the most he's taken in his career. And I don't think he had one. He only had one game last season where he took double-digit field goal attempts. No, I thought, to be clear, I thought Stu was awesome, Omari. Like I think I thought he had a really good game. I thought he was good defensively, had multiple rim protections. I think the jumper looks very fluid and smooth. And so I really think he played well. It's just like I don't know that it's a great indicator when he is the guy that takes the second most attempts on your team. Like to me, there's some sort of gap there between Cade Cunningham and if that's your second guy, there's a gap there that needs to be filled, and they got to figure that out. Whether it's more Karis LeVert, whether it's somebody else, I don't know, but I don't think it can be Isaiah Stewart who takes the second most attempts on your team. But yeah, let's talk a little more specifically now, and we can stay right here on Stu. You can give some more of your thoughts. No hesitation catch and shoot 3-point attempts. He had the blocks. I thought he had a really, really positive game all around with a stat line of those 20 points, 10 rebounds, 4 blocks, no turnovers. A really, really good game from Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking both sides of the floor, like honestly, I think that was one of the best games we've seen him play because he's way to bring it defensively. But yeah, like you said, like he didn't have games last season where he was taking double-digit shots. He was very specific in his role, and I think more broadly, just going back to some of the talk during preseason where you're talking about guys expanding roles, doing stuff that they didn't do last year. It's good that you can lean on Stu for that if it comes down to it, right? I think for a guy where, the first few years of his career, you kind of debate, well, offensively, is he better at the 4? Is he better at the 5? Does his like a size hurt him at the rim? This and that. And tonight, like he looked like a great floor spacing 5. And that's just such a great archetype to have on any team because there's still so few guys in the league who can both knock down threes, but also like really, really protect the rim. I mean, you can almost count, I think, on one hand, the number of guys in the NBA who are genuinely great rim protectors and can also knock down threes. So, yeah, I mean, just really promising stuff from Isaiah. He's a guy, maybe, and just even guys we talk about maybe gets lost in the shuffle a bit just because he's already kind of proven at one thing. So you don't necessarily put it on him to expand his game. But he's done that. Like you said, the shot looked fluid. I think he and Ron were probably the 2 guys in this game who were just objectively all around positive on both ends.
Yeah, and he played 25 minutes. 25 minutes tonight, which I think last year he was around 18 a game or something like that in terms of his minutes per game. So obviously had to step up, 19 minutes a game. Had to step up with the foul trouble that Duren experienced early on. Let's stay in what I feel like is probably the relative positive realm before we get to maybe some guys who struggle a little bit. Ron Holland ends the game with 19 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 2 turnovers, 5 fouls. I do think where Stewart was pretty much an all-around positive game outside of some misses around the basket. I thought Ron's was a little bit more up and down. I didn't think he was very good in the first half. He had a couple pretty bad turnovers trying to initiate offense. Not sure exactly why he was in that situation. But then he hit Stu on a pocket pass in a pick and roll. And then you mentioned the third quarter where he caused some real disruption, some real havoc. And I thought his energy, even though Chicago pushed the lead back to 20 before the fourth quarter, I thought his energy got the team going a little bit. And I also thought he really showed what he's capable of in transition on the offensive end, scoring the basketball.
Yeah, if there's one thing Ron doesn't lack at all, it's urgency. And I think he's just been so important on this team that can lack urgency. Like even at times last season, I don't think they played with the urgency you necessarily wanted to see. And then Ron would come in and he's just, full effort, full energy in everything he does. And it really is a gift that he has to be able to come into a game and like somehow, some way, you're looking up and he's like, there's a steal, there's a transition bucket. He's always doing something. Tonight, I thought was one of the better games he's played, especially late, to hit those big shots. That coast to coast layup, I think, which came off of Stu's 4th block of the night, so those 2 guys creating havoc again. And then that 3 that he didn't hesitate on at all. I think it's just those small moments of growth from him that are encouraging and that you want to see. Because he never would have hesitated to pull that 3 But just to see it go down says a lot about his growth. And yeah, I mean, if he's going to come out and still be that spark plug and be able to put up points in a hurry. I think he scored 13 of his 19 in the second half, and he had a lot of points in the third as well. So yeah, just a great Ron game. In the first half, like I was thinking, like this could be such a Ron night. It's just shaping up to be one of those nights where he comes in and makes something happen, and that's exactly what happened.
Anybody else that was positive for you before? I don't want to say we get to some of the more negative sides, but those were the two guys that stood out to me. Obviously, 39 points off the bench between those two guys. Ron played 27 minutes. I think Cade had an inefficient night. Asar's box score numbers look really impressive, to be honest. I didn't know that I felt his impact as much as what those box score numbers show. Not that he was bad, but I didn't think it was really flagship game for him or like coming out party or something. I thought he was fine, but I didn't, the 11, 9, and 7. I think maybe the number that stands out the most, Omari, for Asar Thompson, he's played 33 minutes, so like come out. Obviously, there's no sort of like minutes restriction or anything like that. I thought he did a really good job on Giddey early in the game, had one of his patented off the ball recovery blocks. He found a little bit of scoring in the second quarter with an off-ball cut. We saw quite a few mid-range jumpers. Maybe that's the biggest thing to talk about with Asar coming out of this one is I feel like he did get to certain spots on the floor, and we saw him try to go to kind of like that little mid-range, and he didn't necessarily knock it down a ton, but that's a shot I've been kind of screaming for him to go ahead and take. So I guess I did like seeing that from him. 9 defensive rebounds. Again, 7 assists. I'm not sure the 7 assists really. I don't know that I thought he was that level of playmaker as I was watching it live. Maybe I missed that. I thought it was a fine game for Asar, but not maybe a standout game for Asar.
That's how I felt. I was going to talk about him next because he did have a nice box score: 11 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, a block, and a steal. And only one turnover. So, you have 7 assists, 1 turnover, all very good. But yeah, he was out there and he made good plays. And, not that you want to put too much of the single game plus minus, but after Stu, who was a +8, like Asar was a +6, and he was the only starter in the positive, which, I think does say something. So he had a good game. I just think his impact was just so even over the course of the game that there just weren't too many like individual moments that stand out. He did have a really nice block in the first quarter, I believe. But like you said, main thing with him is just the mid-range shots. He knocked down 2 mid-range shots. They both look good. He had a couple other attempts. I think in the third quarter, he kind of went back to that, kind of 10-foot turnaround that we saw at times his rookie season. Didn't fall, but we didn't see it much last year. And, he took that shot far more often as a rookie. So it's good to see him get back to that. All around solid Asar game, right? I think if you're like ranking how guys played in this game, he would definitely be toward the top half. And there just weren't really any obvious negatives with him. It was just very steady, even contribution across the board, which I think in a game like this where you're trailing, that kind of gets lost. But he absolutely was positive out there, I thought.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that's probably the right take, that he was a positive. Obviously, his defensive impact is always there. Maybe it was just like because the team defense in general was so rough, it's hard to give as much credit, or maybe that got lost in the shuffle a little bit. And then again, whenever you're just searching for guys to really score the basketball and pop on the offensive end, and it wasn't a game where he really, scored the basketball. What about Jalen Duren? Obviously getting the 2 early fouls. I thought that, always can disrupt a player. I mean, at the end of the day, he had 15 points in 20 minutes. I think we did see how important his play finishing. So, he has 15 and 6 in 20 minutes of actual game action, 1 steal, 2 blocks. So a little bit of that defensive disruption. I think if he plays, as many, Vooch is not able to guard him and Cade in the pick and roll. They just put him in a really tough spot, especially with Duren's athleticism. We saw it 3 different times, 2 times to start the game. And then 1 time, I think, to start the second half, it happened as well. But as Stephen P says, silly fouls, and that is a part of it. Like, you've got to be able to stay on the floor. So I thought in the minutes he was on the court, I thought we did see good Duren things. We saw the K Duren pick and roll chemistry. We also saw, and quite frankly, guys, this is where I'll call out Stu. We saw both of those guys struggle yet again with a skilled big like Vooch, and not be able to defend him at the 3-point line. Vooch had a big game shooting the ball, the little short roll. So for every bucket that Vooch gave up on the defensive end, he probably got back on the offensive end. So both of those guys struggled to guard Vooch in terms of the floor spacer. But what were your thoughts on Duren's game here?
Yeah, good game, I think, offensively. Not a great game defensively. You mentioned just the struggles against Vooch and how stretch bigs tend to pop off against the Pistons. The guys like Vooch, Miles Turner, and so that wasn't a surprise tonight. But
Yeah.
I mean, Vooch really was unstoppable. I mean, 28 points, 14 rebounds, 11-18 overall, 4-6 from three, and an uncomfortable amount of open 3-point attempts too.
Yeah.
So, I think it's tough as a center when you do everything you're supposed to do offensively. I thought he really asserted himself in the paint. Obviously, a lot of chemistry with Cade. 6 rebounds, played just under 20 minutes, 2 blocks. So he was productive and he was assertive. It's just, when your opponent goes 4 of 6 from 3, and he's just absolutely torching your defense all night. I think it's just tough to feel positive about their performance overall because of that. So nothing new, kind of just, some of the same defensive issues they've had against players like that. And I mean, that's just, it's been a sore spot for this team. So that's something that they've got to figure out this season.
Yeah, I mean, I would be interested. This is one of those where I would love to talk, like, be in the, the coaches conversation, whatever, and hear kind of the defensive strategy of how they wanted to defend this. Because I think there was one late where they went ahead and rotated to Vooch. Well, now that puts the full team in rotation. Now they're attacking a closeout, and Vooch actually ended up getting a short roll floater off, or not a short roll, but it ended up getting a floater off of it. So, is it Stu and Duren and Paul Reed have to be better recognizing where they're at and getting back to them? Or is it a situation where the, weak side defenders have to do a better job, closing out and getting there? So I just, that's one I'm always curious what the coaching staff is wanting, what is not hitting exactly right in terms of the defensive coverage of these stretch bigs. Now, sometimes it is just a lack of awareness from Stu and or Duren, but there's some where it's a pick and pop, and it's like, okay, the ball handler gets to a certain point, they've drawn the big away from him. Are we expecting the big to get all the way back, or are we expecting a weak side defender to rotate? So just something to watch big picture, because as you said, O2, it's something we saw all of last year as well, right? It was something we were worried about going into that Knicks playoff series with Karl Anthony Towns. And so at this point, it's either like, can we still expect Stu and Duren to get better at it? Or is there a scheme adjustment that can be had to help limit it?
Yeah, and we saw Tobias take the Karl Anthony Towns defensive assignment. You can't do that with every big.
Correct.
I think Cat, you could put a smaller wing on him and feel pretty good. I don't think you could put Tobias on Vooch. There's a little bit of a weight difference there.
And the other thing there is like just the matchups. The Knicks had a starting lineup with Josh Hart. Right. I mean, I guess with Chicago, you could put Duren on Isaac Okoro. You could put him on Okoro and just let him play off and, see if Okoro is going to make, catch and shoot threes or whatever. But that was kind of the Knicks. That's something you see a little bit more in playoff settings and playoff series. So I am just interested to see there. Any other players or thoughts, general thoughts? Kara's play. We got 10 minutes of Javonte Green. We talked a little bit about Cade. I guess we could go into Cade, a little bit more into Duncan Robinson. Anybody else individually or general team thoughts that we haven't touched on so far?
Yeah, I'll just touch on Karras. Not in an amazing game. He did get a couple shots to fall. in the second half. But I thought he just looked like just a step slow out there, like everybody else did. But going back to just Ji needing a second scorer, needing a second initiator, whatever it may be, there was an opportunity for Karras to fill some of that as well. And he didn't have a lot of a preseason because of injury, but just as these guys acclimate and adjust to each other, I'm curious if Karras ends up becoming a guy that plays more and more just because they need somebody else who can get a bucket and generate some shots. Like I said, we saw a little bit of that from him in the second half. And, with Houston coming up, like with the Celtics coming up, teams with wings, these are games where I think Karras can really show how valuable he is to this group. So again, like tonight wasn't his best night, but you look at some of the issues he could solve, and I think he could end up being pretty important for this team.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially in the non-Ivy games, and even more so when you don't have a Marcus Sasser. I think I don't know what his injury situation is and how soon they're expecting him back, but these could be a big stretch of games for Sasser as well, a big opportunity for him. Because if tonight is any indicator, and again, it's a 1-game sample is all we have, excuse me, guys, they could really use some scoring from the backcourt. And I think Harris really stepping up to the plate and them leaning into that would be good. But Sasser is also a guy that could take that on, and we've seen him really be able to score the basketball in bunches. And so it'll be interesting to see if either of those guys are able to do that, or if maybe Asar takes more of an offensive load, or, quite frankly, O2, maybe they do just continue to lean into these big guys. And I thought we saw some sort of emphasis on getting post touches to a Jalen Duren, to an Isaiah Stewart. It's not necessarily my favorite play type, but it seems like something they may be wanting to lean into. I also wonder if being able to cause a little bit more defensive disruption, get out in transition, play a little faster, obviously plays into the Asar Thompsons, the Ron Hollands as well. And we led off this episode talking about how we didn't think the defensive energy was there from the start. That defensive energy in a lot of ways does drive the transition offense that is going to make this offense more efficient, even with Jaden Ivey, but especially until Jaden Ivey gets back or they get a true number 2 scorer.
Indeed. What do you want to see them do against Houston Friday in adjustment to this guy?
Oh man, that
long list.
that Houston team is gonna beat you up. O2. I mean, they better come ready to play and be physical. Those matchups are going to be interesting in regards to who Houston starts. So as we talk through it here, I mean, even just who takes Şengün. Şengün was awesome in that game against Oklahoma City. I know they lost, but I did a breakdown over for the Game Theory Substack, just because he was so impressive. So my guess is Duren is going to start on Adams, Harris on Şengün, Asar on KD, which is going to put Cade on, oh no, who we putting? Duncan's probably going to have to start on Jabari and Cade on Asar, or Cade on KD and Asar on Amin. I don't know, man. This Houston lineup really gives you some matchup problems, and trying to figure out who Duncan because here I'm gonna tell you fans exactly what's gonna happen. If Duncan Robinson is matched up with Jabari Smith Jr., Houston is gonna post him early and often and try to attack that matchup. I've seen him do it in the preseason. I saw him even do it against OKC. And this team better be willing to box out, or Houston will really, really win the possession game on the offensive boards. Stephen P says zone, baby. We saw some zone in the preseason. I didn't think it looked very good from Detroit, but maybe this is a game to try it out. And here's the thing, O2. We're talking about an offense that didn't look great. Chicago's not exactly known for their defense. You know what I mean? Like, they're a team that gets out in transition, runs fast. When Kobe White's in the lineup, you can see them scoring points. Houston's going to guard the heck out of Detroit. This could be a game where it's a struggle to get to 100 for the Pistons if they don't make shots and find a little bit more flow than what they found in this game.
Yeah, I agree. Like, Houston could just be absolutely stifling defensively. And I don't know if you want to be a team that's relying on one guy to generate a lot of your offense against Houston, especially when they've got KD and, they've got several engines offensively. That's a really good team. They've got multiple wing defenders that can throw
Yep.
arcade, whether it's Ahmed or Tari Easton. Maybe Jabari Smith Jr. Even I don't think he's a bad defender. So yeah, they've got a lot going for them. That's going to be a tough game. Seems like the Pistons and Rockets always have like really tough spirited games. So it'll be a good test. But yeah, you make a good point about Chicago, and just from a matchup standpoint, that's definitely going to be a tough one for the Pistons.
Yeah. We'll see if they can bounce back. And it is one game, and that's what some of the things we talked about tonight could look very silly. Duncan Robinson can all of a sudden go on a heater, or who knows, Karras is averaging 15 points a game for the next, 4 to 6 weeks. It's one game, but that's the data we have right now. So we wanted to get that to you as soon as we could. We stayed up late here to go ahead and break this one down. This will not be the normal kind of procedure throughout the regular season in terms of recording after games, but where it was the season opener, we thought it would be worth it there. NBA basketball, regular season basketball is back. Lots of big time performances around the NBA tonight. Victor went crazy. VJ Edgecombe as a rookie went crazy. It looked like Anthony Edwards had a big game. I'm excited to catch up on all of it, but I will be doing that in the morning. I hope you will be doing that maybe after your flight lands tomorrow back in Detroit. Stephen P says, thanks guys. Obviously we appreciate all of you. I have one thing real fast I want to read here, Omari, because this is to you as well. This is from Phil. He reached out over on the Substack and he said, specifically about the podcast, your 200th Pistons Pulse episode put me in a reflective mood, and I wanted to share how meaningful that podcast has been to me. I grew up in Minnesota, go Timberwolves, but for the last decade or so, I've moved to several locations across the country, and last summer, I ended up in the Detroit area. While I may have some connection to Michigan, as with any move, it was nerve-wracking to begin somewhere new. I was looking for a way to learn more about the local area while enjoying my interest in basketball, and I came across the podcast. You and Omari seem like good dudes and present your thoughts in very real, thoughtful, and accessible ways. So much so, I felt inclined to send this note. Thank you both for helping me learn more about basketball, keep updated on the Pistons, and feel closer to the community I now call home. I wanted to share that because those are pretty cool, O2, whenever we get those messages. So I wanted to share that on the pod. Make sure you caught that as well. And I thought maybe that'd be a good way to end this one.
No, for sure. Hey, we appreciate you. Welcome to Detroit. Glad we could help break down this team. You got here at a great time, by the way. It was bleak a couple years ago. So, it's nice to have a team that people want to tap into and learn more about. But appreciate the kind words. Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll be back. I think right now the plan, we're looking at Sunday night. Detroit plays again on Sunday afternoon. And so O2 would be able to do his media stuff and all of that. And then we could do something Sunday evening, hopefully with Sean Windsor. YouTube user says, great show, guys. Appreciate you always, YouTube user. About to hit you back over on the Substack from your thoughts as well. But Sean, we're hoping to get him on. We'll have a few more games to break down. And by that time, it's still early. But when you get 3 or 4 games into a regular season, barring crazy injuries or something like that, you can start to get a little bit more of a feel because you played differing opponents and all of that. So hopefully, I would say better analysis because we have more data points coming for that episode. So join us back. I believe that will be on Sunday night.
Yeah, one game, folks, not the NFL. I know sometimes after these losses, it's like, I can't believe that happened, but they play so much basketball. This is one of 82. And as Bryce said, when we come back on Sunday, we'll have a few more data points to draw from, and 2 very different teams, I think, from Chicago and Boston and Houston. So definitely looking forward to that one. And big thanks as well to everybody that tapped in with us late tonight. It's been a while since we've done one this late, like probably at least a couple years since we've done one this late. So Thank you for staying up with us.
Yep, take it away.
All right. Big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols, our executive producer, Bill Bradley, and big shout out to Wes Davenport, as always. And we'll talk to you all next week.